this meeting to order on January 12th, 2021, and ask our city clerk to please call a roll.
Commissioner Galt,
Present.
Commissioner Guess,
Present.
Commissioner Henderson,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Bray.
Present. Now I'd like to ask Commissioner Henderson if he would please lead us in the invocation. Please stand.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, again, we are so delighted and excited to be in your presence. We thank you, God, for the privilege that you've given us to serve this community, and how we pray, Lord God, that the decisions that we make will be decisions that will glorify you and will lift our entire city. We pray, Lord God, for our mayor and for our commissioners, for our city manager, and for the entire staff of the city. Father, we realize that we need you and we can do nothing without you. We pray, oh God, that you'll bless our country, that you'll bless our city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing while we pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
So before we jump into the consent agenda, I thought I'd just make a couple of remarks. Later in the agenda, we're going to be talking about the Commission's priorities for this year. But we're already moving forward on several of those. And the most noticeable would have been our efforts to listen to the residents and businesses on the south side. We had a meeting last Thursday night that was well attended. Over 100 people were there. I was just telling Commissioner Galt, I've been getting emails all week, people who weren't there or can't be there this coming Thursday night are raising their hand and volunteering and saying, you know, they'd like to be involved somehow, some way. That's a really good sign because that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for involvement from the community. We're willing to help lead it. And I know that there's going to be some funding priorities that we're going to have to decide upon going down the road. But getting our citizens involved with this effort's a really positive thing. So. And also this afternoon we had our first meeting about 911 for the first time in since COVID, and so we got a lot of things talked about, a lot of things out on the table. We're in the process of scheduling a follow-up meeting, so we've got a number of priorities as it relates to that initiative, and the number one thing is how we're going to fund 911 in the future, because as we all know, or maybe just to remind all of us, is that in the past, sorry, got a cramp in my leg.
Drink some water.
Great, happened my first meeting. Don't laugh so hard, Ray. But as we all know, funding is extremely important. In the past, the way 911 is funded, going back 25 or 30 years, was by a fee on our landline phones. So all of us, over the last 25, 30 years, there was a time when we all had a landline phone. When cell phones came out, landlines began to go away. And they've dwindled to where they're a very, very small part of the total number of phones, and so our funding has gone down. So we have to figure out how to replace that funding going forward. So that's where a lot of the discussion was today. And then we've got to obviously talk about the equipment, what the equipment needs are. The city and county are committed to working together on it, which was a really good thing. And so I thought we made a lot of progress today. Next week, the city and county are meeting together to talk about the new outdoor sports park. So it'll be my first meeting to talk about that. So I really can't speak to it, but I know that it's one of the priorities of this commission, is to work with the county on that. You'll see that later on the agenda, but that's coming up next week. So we're already moving forward, and I just wanted to point out some of those things. Really excited about the progress that we made with the Southside meeting this last week. Looking forward to Thursday night. And if there's any citizens that out there that didn't get to make the last one and want to make this one, please come join us on Thursday night. Okay. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval. Would any commissioner like an item removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion?
Right.
Okay, I will ask the city clerk to please read the items recommended for approval.
Approve minutes for the February 23rd, 2021 Paducah Board of Commissioners meeting. Receive and file documents, personnel actions, appointment of Jennifer Caldwell to replace Stephanie Horton and Charles Leon Owens to replace Early Fugate on the Civil Service Commission. Said term shall expire March 9th, 2024. Appointment of Melinda Winchester to replace Paul King and Greg McCord to replace Keith Betraitis on the Historic and Architectural Review Commission, HARC. Said term shall expire March 9th, 2024. Reappointment of April Cochran and Mary Katz to the Creative and Cultural Council. Said term shall expire March 24th, 2024. Reappointment of Albert Parker to the Municipal Housing Commission. Said term shall expire July 24th, 2024. Reappointment of Rick Lloyd to the Paducah Golf Commission. Said term shall expire March 26th, 2025. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to apply for and accept grant funds through the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives, KDLA, for a FY 2022 Local Records Program grant in an amount of $42,772 based on the bids received for services related to digitizing records for the Paducah Police Department, and authorizing the mayor to execute the grant agreement and all documents related to same.
So move.
Second.
City clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. So the next item on the agenda, item number 2, are some board appointments. But I thought I'd take these off the consent agenda and talk about it a little bit. The city and county have been working for some time to establish an industrial, kind of to reestablish our IDA, our Industrial Development Authority. And this is a big move for us because it allows us to transfer assets from both the city and county into a separate organization, our IDA, and allows us to be more nimble in the way that we move forward, and it frees up funds for us to be able to work to attract businesses. We will be a separate entity, and these appointments tonight really are to the new IDA. And Bob Johnston has served as the chairman of the old IDA, I think, for probably the last 30 years. I don't have the exact number of years, but he has served as our chairman since that park was really built out there. And he is rolling off at the end of this month. And certainly we want to do something to recognize him at the appropriate time. But I just want to call him out as having gone above and beyond for many, many years and served with distinction as our chairman of the IDA. But after tonight, we will be moving forward under the new IDA, and so that I'll ask the city clerk to. Well, It's the appointment of J.P. Kelly, Bob Turek, and the joint appointment of Keith Anderson to the IDA. City Clerk, you want to call roll?
I'll read it
Okay, why
here.
don't
A
you read
proposed
it?
motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the action of Mayor Bray in the appointment of J.P. Kelly, Bob Turek, and Keith Anderson to the Paducah-McCracken County Industrial Development Authority, IDA. Said term shall expire March 31st, 2025, March 31st, 2024, and March 31st, 2023 respectively.
City Clerk, please call roll.
So moved. We need a motion and second.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. So now we'll move to municipal orders. And Michelle will talk about the city commission priorities that the commission has met to talk about. We kind of changed the nomenclature a little bit on this. We started out calling it our strategic plan for this year, but we decided to change to the nomenclature of commission priorities. Because we really, as a new commission, really didn't have a chance to sit down and lay out a long-term strategic goal, so we thought that was a better description of where we were headed. So, Michelle?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I don't intend to spend a lot of time on this because we have over the past month, but what you have in front of you is the City Commission priorities, previously known as the strategic plan. They represent the 12 priorities previously identified. What we walked through the last session, we made those language changes, and that is in the plan for adoption tonight. It also has the six priority projects for that $20 million bond proceeds, 24 continuous improvement goals, and then 4 what's important later items. As the mayor mentioned, we have we've been working on a number of these priorities, so we plan to start our reporting actually on April 1st and have quarterly reporting on each of these items. So if you would like to, we can dive into any certain section, but I wasn't planning to cover them one by one since we covered them at the last meeting.
Any commissioners have any comments or anything you'd like to call out, talk about specifically? And these will be available on our website so that our citizens can see them and be aware of what's going on, right?
Correct. They'll be available on the website, and then each of the action item will have a communication plan associated with it. So we'll make sure that there is a lot of public communication around all of the items.
And every quarter, the report that's comes back from the leadership team indicating their progress on each item will be shared on the website as well, made public.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Could we have a motion?
So moved.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt the municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, Adopting the City Commission Priorities, the Continuous Improvement Goals, and WIL Action Items for calendar year 2021, and repealing municipal orders 2098, 2207, and 2368.
So moved. Second.
City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. The next item on the agenda is an application for the City Hall, for a historic tax credit grant on the City Hall renovation from 2018. And Katie Axt is here to talk about it. Thanks, Katie.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I am here to present to you our request to apply for a second phase of historic tax credits to the state for the City Hall Rehabilitation Project. This project was actually initiated in 2017. Construction began in 2018 and was completed in 2019. We received a Phase 1 award from the Kentucky Heritage Council back in 2018 for the roof stabilization. But there were substantial eligible costs that we could seek additional historic tax credits for, and staff at the Kentucky Heritage Council encouraged us to apply for a Phase 2. So that is what we are going to do. For all of the other work, including seismic retrofits, windows, HVAC systems, that were part of the rehabilitation project. So the Kentucky Heritage Council can award up to 20% of eligible rehabilitation costs. We don't expect to receive the full 20% award of the remaining funds that we've already spent on this project, but it will be a new revenue source to the city if we are awarded additional tax credits.
If we got the full 20%, what would that be?
Approximately $380,000.
Okay.
The first phase, the Heritage Council awarded $213,000, and we were able to sell those to Paducah Bank for approximately $190,000.
Okay.
Katie, I was, just a point of clarification, the Phase 2 for the 315,000, is that what you said?
380.
380, that's for Phase 2 only?
That is
That's-
correct.
That's on top of what we already received for Phase 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The total project cost for the rehabilitation was approximately $4.3 million. So taking the roof off, which was approximately $2 million, the remaining eligible cost, and then you take 20% of that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Questions? We good? Would you like to read it, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled A Municipal Order Authorizing an Application to the Kentucky Heritage Council for a Historic Tax Credit Allocation for the City Hall Renovation Phase 2 project and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same.
Second.
City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye.
Thanks, Katie.
The next item is an application for a grant to help Community Kitchen here in the city with for emergency shelter funds, and Ty Wilson, our grant writer, is here to tell us about it. Hi, Ty, thanks.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for having me tonight. As Mayor Bray said, this is for an application for an emergency solutions grant. Back last March, when the CARES Act was first passed by Congress, they had provided funding for homeless assistance grants in the form of emergency solutions grant program. Now, those funds were dispersed through the states, and so the Kentucky Housing Corporation was able to come into contact with some. So they've developed this application for local governments, nonprofits, in order to apply for homeless assistance grants. This is actually the second round of them providing this. There's already been a first round, so the city came across this opportunity, and one of the eligible activities that was a part of it was providing hotel and motel vouchers for people suffering from homelessness, which is something Community Kitchen in the city already does. So we took advantage of this. We found a couple other cities in the state, specifically Richmond and Brea, who applied for this type of grant, received funding, and basically wanted to imitate that with Community Kitchen. So this is an application for $31,500 to help them provide basically to keep their program going, to help them out fiscally and act as the fiscal agent for this grant for them.
Hey, Ty, could you break down that 31.5, explain what the thing
Yeah.
goes to?
Yeah, so the there's 30,000 of this is straight towards vouchers, and 1,500 of that is set aside basically to help with licensing and training for a program that's a requirement of this grant. The KHC requires that Community Kitchen uses something called a homeless management information system, and there's some costs with getting licensing and training for it. So the other part of that grant would use to help them with that.
So, I think all of us know, but I'll just reiterate, because of the pandemic and people not being able to get into shelters, Community Kitchen has spent an inordinate amount of money this past winter putting people up in hotels. And so this is it certainly doesn't cover all of their costs, but it certainly will help. And so we appreciate everything, of course, they do in the community and want to help as much as we can. City Clerk, would you read the municipal order, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing and Ratifying an Application for a 2021 Emergency Solutions Grant for Emergency Shelter in the amount of $31,500 through the Kentucky Housing on behalf of Community Ministries Incorporated, DBA Community Kitchen, for COVID-19 related homelessness expenses, and authorizing and ratifying the execution of all documents related to same."
So moved.
Second.
City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye.
Thanks, Ty.
Thank you, Ty. So we have one ordinance that we're going to adopt tonight, and this is the ordinance that we talked about before. Mr. Murphy's here in case any commissioners have any questions. We've already had a reading. Are there any, Rick, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or are we good? Everybody good? The City Clerk, would you read it, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Chapter 50, Article 3, Stormwater Conveyance and Management of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance is being enacted pursuant to the mandates imposed by the Federal Clean Water Act, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, and the Kentucky Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. In particular, those parts that require local governments to comply with water pollution control requirements. This ordinance amends Paducah Code of Ordinances, Chapter 50, Article 3, Stormwater Conveyance and Management, to come into compliance with the post-construction runoff control requirements of the Kentucky Division of Water pursuant to the Clean Water Act.
So moved.
Second.
City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. So we're going to introduce some ordinances tonight. We've got a couple of alleys that are being proposed to close. Rick, you want to talk about both of them, really? First one?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, City Commission, again, thank you for having me this evening. Over on the south side of town, we are all familiar with U-Haul. And I don't know whether or not, U-Haul is located in the center of your screen, and there's actually an alley there that in this particular case, the alley, the two lines that dedicate or show the alley are not physically on the GIS map. That's why we put that disclaimer in there. Sometimes there are omissions. But U-Haul owns both sides, and they wish to close that as we have no public need for that. And we're happy to get this done for them to return the property to a tax base.
And that alley, Rick, runs parallel to that building?
It's actually right in here.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? City Clerk, would you read it, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Closing of an Alley Extending Northwest of Irvin Cobb Drive between 2170 and 2190 Irvin Cobb Drive, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah does hereby authorize the closing of an alley extending northwest of Irvin Cobb Drive between 2170 and 2190 Irvin Cobb Drive, and authorizes, empowers, and directs the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed from the city to the property owners in or abutting the public ways to be closed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, the second one, introduction of an ordinance is closure of two alleys. Rick?
Yes, sir. This particular alley is on Kentucky Avenue. It's an L-shaped alley. It runs back this way, and then behind the building here, again, these alleys are not being used for the public good or the public purpose, and the adjacent businesses and property owners wish to make application for those closures, and we support those closures.
What business is that, or what building, or?
This is Owens Cleaners right here, and this is a warehouse area that they may have a business interest in, but this alley is not publicly improved, but it physically exists and comes back here, and then this is behind the Honda dealership on Broadway.
Yeah.
On back, so this area here to be returned to
Okay.
private interest.
City Clerk, would you read that? Read the ordinance?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance providing for the closing of 2 alleys extending north of Kentucky Avenue between 1039 and 1041 Kentucky Avenue, and between 1034 Broadway and 1039 Kentucky Avenue, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah does hereby authorize the closing of 2 alleys extending north of Kentucky Avenue between 1039 and 1041 Kentucky Avenue, and between 1034 Broadway and 1039 Kentucky Avenue, and authorizes, empowers, and directs the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed from the city to the property owners in or abutting the public ways to be closed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the next is a bid award for our street resurfacing program, Rick.
Correct. What is being put in front of you, we recently had a bid for our street rehabilitation and resurfacing for our asphalt products. Those would be our blacktop that you would see come out annually for the streets that we do resurface, and this is being awarded to Jim Smith Contracting to fulfill the budgetary needs that we've set aside for each fiscal year. We're in 2021, this will be 2021 and 2022 with a 1-year renewal. It generally fixes our asphalt prices for the next 3 years.
Okay. So before I ask the city clerk to read this, this is kind of related, it's not specific, but if someone is interested to know when their street or an area of a town is up for resurfacing, where it is on the list, is there a way for citizens to find that out?
Very difficult to do that, Mayor. I'll just be honest. The reason for that is because if you've been driving around town, you see all this utility work and we're not going to go and make surface repairs only to be followed by the utility companies to come cut the streets. There's 2 places I can name. 6th Street, we just recently resurfaced 6th Street, and they had I think it's a 16-inch main break, and they made a hole in there half the size of this room. So what we try to do is we try to coordinate with them. So we have to take their facilities plan, Paducah Water, Gas, Power, JSA, and try to dodge where they're going to be so that we don't make surface improvements and then say, Rick, you should have checked and seen whether or not we was doing a main replacement this next year. So it's very difficult to isolate those things because we are actually trying to coordinate with all of our underground utilities.
So, okay. So I'm just trying to understand. So do we have a general understanding of kind of where we're headed?
I could share with the community, we have a ranking of 1 to 5, okay, where 1 is the best and 5 being the worst. And I could identify all those streets that are ones that don't need any work. And then I could tell you, if you're in the 4 to 5 range, they need work. But if we were to add up the value of fixing all those 4 or 5s, we are well beyond our budgetary ability to do that. So then we try to incrementally make progress, and we also go by the number of cars per day. Like since I've been here, we've redone Broadway twice. I've been here 24 years, where there's some streets that haven't been paved 1 time in that 24 years. But Broadway is a main street that has a lot of use. So we try to use the utilities, and the condition of the street for determining or trying to determine when a street needs to be resurfaced or rehabilitated. A lot of times we get a request for that area out there is public right-of-way, but it only serves 2 houses. And they'll have a driveway on some of these unimproved right-of-ways, and they want us to pave those. We won't do those because they only serve 2 houses. So there's a lot of information out there about that.
So it's conceivable that there are streets that will never get resurfaced.
No.
There'll always be some streets that will take priority, whether it's 1 house, 2 house, or 50 houses.
Eventually, those streets, all the streets will be resurfaced, eventually. But the priority for those will be based on their use and their need, and also not to do something only for having it destroyed by a utility replacement.
Okay, let's say we award this bid today.
Mm-hmm.
How long between the time that you award the bid, what's the lead time that you give them to tell them where to go?
Well, asphalt plants have not opened yet. That's another thing, too, that comes into play. Asphalt plants normally close late November, early December, and don't open until April because they don't make asphalt during the winter. From the time we award this bid, for example, you see our concrete work ahead of the asphalt work. Take Bridge Street. Right now, we're doing concrete work on Bridge Street in preparation for asphalt work to come this summer. So there is a lag. So when we are doing the concrete work, that is in preparation of the asphalt work. They'll see the asphalt work come a few months after that work, if that may answer your question.
It does, and I guess where I was headed is for the public to know, if we have that lag time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing concrete work there, which is followed by that, is there a way that we could just post those addresses? Because that may help to answer where you're headed, where you're driving then,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, I think, I'm just trying to give this, we've got some new commissioners here, people ask us, how do you do this? I mean, how do you prioritize it, and I think, providing more visibility to the way we approach that, I think is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
absolutely.
so maybe we can devise a way to, to be able to answer, maybe you could provide something to the commissioners. So if somebody asks them, they've at least got an idea of kind of where it is on the chart. If nothing else, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, to use your earlier grading schedule,
Mhm.
Right, didn't we put in some new technology a couple of
We-
years ago that
we-
identified all of that?
We do, and this is, we do have a piece of software that we can load up all of the data on the streets that gives their condition, but it's something that needs to be kept up with annually on that. And it's purely by need, by just pure observation and diagnosis of the street. It doesn't take into consideration utilities and these other things. So, but yes, to answer your question is yes, we do have that, and it can be put in there. And so long as we keep it up to date for that, and we can answer these questions. But just because your street's a 5 don't mean that we're going to be paving it next year, because our annual budget's maybe $1.5 million, and our material prices have tripled in 24 years. So what we did 24 years ago, we do 1/3 of today. So we're even more selective of what we do. So we don't have the money to do it in 15 years on all the 5s.
So is there a way to take all of what you said and put it in layman's terms, to put it in a way that people will understand what a 1 is, what a 5 is, what a 4 is, and how you determine what street will be resurfaced and what? Is there a way to pull all that together?
We can attempt to do that, but I'm very hesitant to try to do that because I'm very concerned about us over-promising and under-delivering. Because once we say we're going to do something, we want to make sure we do it. And
And I'm not suggesting promising anything, I'm just simply suggesting that we help people understand how things happen. It's one thing to say we're going to do your street next week. It's another thing to say it may not happen for a couple of years, and this is why.
yes, there's very much so. We can do that. But it's a whole lot of times getting folks to understand we have more need than we have
Sure.
resources.
Well, I think
We
that's a
need more
good point,
funds.
and I think this commission needs to understand, going forward, what the need is. I mean, how much the need is, and like your comment about all the fives. So if we have an annual budget of $1.5 million, do the fives, if you add them all up, is that 15 million? Is
More.
that the-
More than 15 million.
So it'd be good to know that. I mean, I think it would be good to know what the need is out there. So, as we go through the budget season, we really understand.
Mhm.
So,
For example, when we were talking about sidewalks, we were talking about what's the need in sidewalks? It's greater than 15 million, just with what's out there.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the, okay, where were we?
I'll read that one.
Can you read that one, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company, LLC, for the City of Paducah's calendar years 2021 and 2022 street resurfacing program and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the City of Paducah accepts the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company, LLC, for the City of Paducah's calendar years 2021 and 2022 street resurfacing program with the option of a one-year renewal agreement upon the mutual agreement of both parties, said bid being in substantial compliance with the bid specification and advertisement for bid as contained in the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company, LLC, of February 25th, 2021, and authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for the following prices. Resurfacing: bituminous surface base, $78 per ton; milling texture, $50 per ton; shoulder construction, $40 per ton; pavement markings, paint 4-inch line, 25 cents per linear foot; paint 12-inch stop lines, $2.50 per linear foot; paint 24-inch stop lines, $5 per linear foot; paint straight arrow, $50 each; paint turn arrow, $50 each; paint combination arrow, $100 each; paint 8-inch crosswalks, $1.25 per linear foot; paint school, $125 each; paint railroad crossings, $500 each; paint stop, $200 each; paint only, $200 each; paint handicap symbol, $35 each; paint 4-inch parking lot lines, 50 cents per linear foot; thermo 4-inch line, $1.25 per linear foot; thermo 12-inch stop lines, $4.50 per linear foot; thermo 24-inch stop lines, $9 per linear foot; thermo straight arrow, $100 each; thermo turn arrow, $100 each; thermo combination arrow, $250 each; thermo 8-inch crosswalks, $3 per linear foot; thermo school, $275 each; thermo railroad crossings, $500 each; thermo stop, $250 each; thermo only, $250 each; equipment rental, excavator small, $140 an hour; excavator medium, $175 per hour; excavator with mulching head, $170 per hour; skid steer loader, $120 per hour; dump truck tandem, $85 per hour; dump truck tri-axle, $85 per hour; motor grader medium, $170 per hour, $75 per hour; dozer small, $155 per hour; dozer medium, $175 per hour; labor, $70 per hour; vibratory roller small, $130 per hour; vibratory roller medium, $150 per hour.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now we're going to talk about a contract that we've recently renegotiated and settled in on. And Jim, are you going to talk about it?
I sure am,
City
Mr. Mayor.
Manager?
Yes, thank you. I asked Stephanie to come up too, in case she had any questions for Stephanie. Myself, Stephanie, Rick Murphy, and Amy Clark, and Chris Yarber served as the negotiating team for the city. We did have successful negotiations with our local ASME unit. They represent our parks and our public works, as well as our flood wall. So basically, they have 3 different departments represented by ASME. We had 5 negotiating sessions. We did reach tentative agreement within the deadline of March 1st, so we made that deadline. Their body has already ratified the agreement. We're bringing this agreement forward for consideration tonight as an introduction. We plan to bring it back for consideration for approval at our next meeting, and we'll actually have members of their executive committee here to do a ceremonial signing at that time as well. So we'll have David Shockley here and his team. But the negotiations went well. I thought there was some good give and take, as all good negotiations should be. What I try to do is get to a win-win. I try to make sure that they realize that we're all one team, because we are just Team Paducah, working together, trying to find a good amicable solution. And I think this agreement captures that. We really leaned heavy on the compensation study we did a year ago to make sure that we're competitive in the marketplace for our employees, making sure that we kind of stayed true to that study, and this agreement captures that for the most part. There are a few positions that the study indicated that we were paying market rate for those positions, but the union negotiated up on those positions at 3%. So when you see 3% on those the positions there for the custodian, collector, the concrete finisher, maintenance technician, and traffic technician, that was a negotiated increase for those positions above the 50% market rate. The other positions on there, where you'll see the laborer, the right-of-way maintenance person, the solid waste truck driver, the flood wall operator, and the compost equipment operator, I'm glad to say that they are a little bit higher, but we've pulled them into being competitive in the marketplace. So what we want to try to do is be a very attractive employer in Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois, Southeast Missouri as well, just to be able to grab employees that have some good skill sets and talent and bring them here. Most importantly, though, we want to make sure we keep our team. Make sure we keep our team in place so they can, earn a good living wage here and retire here. We do have very attractive benefits, and with this competitive salary, I believe we'll be able to keep those who we have in place. And as you all know, I'd rather keep the employees that we have than hire new ones, go through the process of training them, and spend the time going through the hiring process as well. So it's good to be able to have good team members and keep them on board here with us. A few other changes in there I'll bring attention to. We made a big significant change from the city's perspective when it comes to the clarification of what a full day's work means. And I know that it might sound kind of trivial, but that was really a point of contention with the ASME unit and the city for the last couple of years when it comes to working long consecutive days, especially when it came around the flood wall operations or the gate operations. If an employee is asked to work 1 hour, is that considered a full day? The city's position was no. You need to work 8 hours or 10 hours depending upon your shift. Their position was yes. So we had some contention back and forth for a couple of years, and this clarification, the agreement defines it clearly and puts that to bed. So we were very happy with coming to terms with that. That's a full day of work has been defined in the agreement as either an 8 or 10 hour shift. So I was very pleased with that. We also worked with them on really incentivizing the importance of being a member of the team, saying that we give preference to a current team member. So if there was an open position in the unit, the bargaining unit, that we would give preference to a current member instead of an external hire. However, that doesn't mean we're only going to advertise internally and then externally. We'll do it, concurrently. But we are guaranteeing to the body that we will interview all the internal applicants, as well as if there's a practical examination that goes with that position, they'll get the practical too. So we're going to give them a fair shot, and make sure that we do give them preference in the position. So that's actually, captured in the agreement. And for the COLA increases, we matched the current FY22 2.5%, FY23 3%, meaning fiscal year or financial year 22 2.5% increase, in our fiscal year or financial year 23 3% increase, and then that matches what's in the police and fire union agreements. And then this agreement staggered 1 year, so this has FY24 in it, or fiscal year 24, or our financial year 24, and that's 2%. So the COLAs would be 2.5%, or cost of living increase, 2.5%, 3%, and then 2%. So overall, the financial impact as calculated by our finance department for the 3 years for salaries and benefits, including pension, of this agreement would be $1.7 million. So that's the change, $1.7 million over a 3-year period. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? I'll be glad to ask them, or answer them, I should say.
You mentioned that some roles, I think, were, when we looked at the compensation study, some of the roles actually got more of an increase than just the COLA, right?
Yes.
Do you know how many roles?
All of them did.
So all of them were above and beyond the COLA.
Yeah, so basically what we did, is we did basically a one-time administrative adjustment to bring them into the market-based pay, except for those positions I called out before, the custodian, collector, the concrete finisher, the maintenance tech. Those were bumped up based
Gotcha.
upon negotiations.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, from my perspective, it's really good news. I mean, all the city workers are really important to us. They do really important work for the city every single day, whether you work, in the refuse department, in the public works department, in Parks and Rec. It's really putting the city's best foot forward, and so I'm very pleased that we were able to get this done.
Thank you.
So, City Clerk, you want to read that, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Paducah and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO Local 1586. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Paducah and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO Local 1586, which will expire June 30th, 2024.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, staff.
Thanks, staff.
She provided moral support.
She's got all dressed up.
See you guys.
So the next item is we got some discussion items, and the first discussion item is a discussion about the bond proceeds. So I know there's a lot of interest on everybody's part about the $19.7 million of bond proceeds. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to spend it? And I guess the thing that I would say is that we are carefully considering what we do, and we're not jumping to make any decisions quickly. The potential projects, as you can see up there on the screen, are Barkley Regional Airport, certainly the outdoor sports park in conjunction with the county, city facilities that need upgrading, the 911 project, potential stormwater projects, and then, of course, other miscellaneous and Southside Southside enhancements, and then other miscellaneous projects or enhancements. So I think that the commission feels compelled to keep this in front of the public because, first of all, you have a right to know and you have a need to know. But we don't have all the answers as we sit here today. And so we're taking it very carefully. There's a lot and all these projects have moving parts. Probably the project that we know the most about is Barkley Regional Airport, and we don't even know exactly what that number is yet. So this is really just a discussion. I wanted to make sure that we were talking about it. Do any of the commissioners have any thoughts or input, concerns that you'd like to bring up?
I think a couple of these are affiliated with the county, specifically the 911 and
Right.
the outdoor. I think it's very important that we have those discussions with the county and understand what their part will be.
Right. Thanks for pointing that out. I should have pointed that out, but those are two joint projects. And
Well, and the
so-
airport as well. I should have
Well,
said that
and that's
one.
right. And the
Airport as well, all three.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the county is participating in all, those are three joint projects, not city projects. But along those lines, I've said this 3 times in the last couple of days. The judge and I have been talking about a lot of different issues together because, there are so many things that we do that in order to execute them, the best way and the right way for the community, we have to work together. And so that's kind of been a theme between us. And I think it's going well, and we continue to work together. We were at a GPED board meeting today. We also had an IDA meeting this afternoon. So there's just a lot of opportunities to work with the county, and we're continuing to do that, and these three projects are good examples of that, so.
I think also, if you look at those critical projects this body has identified, the south side enhancements. One thing that I took away from that meeting was the enhancements to the south side properties that are in the county. So again, that dovetails with that as well. And then you could also look at stormwater projects, the stormwater issues the county has that feeds into our stormwater issues. So I think, we're definitely in it together.
Yeah.
It was definitely a message last Thursday night because there was a lot of discussion about where the line is drawn between the city and the county, and you heard the railroad divides it, and a lot of
Right.
different things. But some of the projects that were mentioned are in the county.
They are.
So I don't know if the county officials have thought about coming to that meeting on Thursday, could be an invitation that was extended, or at least for us to share the notes that we're hearing
Yeah.
at that meeting with the county, because it is important. A big part of the south side is the county.
Yeah, I said something to the judge today, and Commissioner Bartleman actually called me, and he will be there Thursday night. I'm not sure who else, but another takeaway from the meeting is Kyle Pote with the county, with the state of
State.
Kentucky, will be there as well, because there were some state issues that came up on roads. So I don't know who all's coming from the county, but I know Commissioner Bartleman's coming for sure. So,
And I'll also indicate for the board's, confidence that those identified projects, that there are, for the most part, bond eligible expenditures. When you look at there might be some tax implications. We're looking at Berkeley Region Airport, what to do with the leased facilities, that type of thing, but things that we can work around. But the projects that have been identified, the 911 projects, stormwater projects, city facilities, and the outdoor recreation facilities, for the most part, are all, bond eligible expenditures. The south side enhancements, it really just depends on what we do and how we define that.
I just wanted to have a discussion about it and get it out there and for everybody to see and talk about. Are we good to move on? Or did you?
No, I was just going to say, we have a timeline for people that are responsible within the city to bring that forward and us discuss. So it's not like it's just laying out there and.
You're talking about the bond?
Yes, yeah, I'm talking, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We're going to keep it out there in
Yeah.
front. I mean, just let people know how we're moving forward, so, thank you. So the next discussion item, I've asked Michelle to talk a little bit about our software conversions. So, ever since I took office, I've been hearing about all the work that we've done over the last 3 or 4 years about converting to a new piece of software and how great it was going to be, for the city, for our citizens, and we had a big conversion on one piece of the software that happened last weekend.
That's right.
And Michelle is responsible for managing this, which I can tell you is a really big deal, because if it shuts down and it doesn't work, nobody's happy.
That's right.
But I wanted Michelle to not only talk about the most recent conversion, but just, again, give all of us kind of perspective on what we've been going through.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. I'm happy to be here to talk about this. Essentially, what this is ERP software is, the technical jargony term, but it's really the software that runs the city, outside of dispatch and our public safety features. So it's really, we're modernizing our organization, and it runs our daily functions and has some really nice citizen features that we're very close to rolling out. So I'm excited to share some of that today. So a little bit on the project history. This is the software that we're replacing. Just looking at the picture of it, I don't have to feel like I have to say much more on it. It doesn't meet modern needs. You can't attach documents to it. You can't get information out of it. There's not a capability for online services. You know, when it came to things like taking credit cards, it wasn't going to work with this software.
But can you play Oregon Trail on that?
That's right.
Is that a DOS screen? Yeah.
Yes. And it had been in place since 1995, was when they implemented this software. And I think the codes and permitting team had upgraded, but other than that, we had not been on a regular upgrade schedule to keep it modern. So I know Commissioner Gall, I believe, was on the commission for this. No, it's software, I get it.
It's been 4 years.
And Commissioner Wilson was as well. So we formed an ERP team that I'll get into later, but it's a cross-departmental team that really is the steering committee for this project. We had a request for proposals in 2015 and kicked the project off in 2016. Who we ended up selecting was Tyler Technologies. We are implementing their Munis software, which is basically, you know, it's a public sector software that's very common. And as we were implementing Munis, what's amazing about these products is the rate at which technology changes is just incredible. So they actually acquired a product called EnerGov, and that is their codes and permitting software that was a lot more robust than what was in the Munis side and also ran off of our GIS system. So we had a change order about 1.5 years ago to also implement EnerGov under the scope of this project. So I have to take a minute to recognize our ERP team while I am the project manager. These are the people that are really leading the effort and doing an incredible amount of work. And then while this is our steering committee, it really impacts the whole department, and we have functional leads in each department that really are in charge of configuring the software, training, and testing. So it's just an incredible amount of work, and this is a team working really hard to modernize our organization. So I won't spend a lot of time here, but we do have some vision and goals for the project. What I really wanted to talk about is this is an opportunity for us to really improve our business processes. So while you're implementing software, you have to lay everything out. And so we take that opportunity to try and make them more efficient, more effective, figure out how we can best utilize the software. Also, we want to make it more customer friendly. And I remember Les Fugate, this really struck me last year when we were implementing our EnerGov product. We were trying to figure out how we want to use the software, and he's one of our he's our building inspector, and he said, this is not. He was kind of challenging where we were headed with the software and said, this isn't necessarily the customer service direction that we're headed, so I don't think we want to configure the software this way. So that really struck me as our team digging in and challenging our process and how we can make it more efficient and better for our customers. So this is our scope and schedule. What you have on the light gray items is what's been completed, and then the black text is what's in progress or still to come. So we went live with our financials, which is accounting, general ledger, budgeting, purchasing. That was the first phase, and that's really the backbone of the software. Pretty much everything built off of that. Next, we moved on to our revenue modules, and the occupational license was split out separate from the property taxes. Those are two big systems, and each of those took about 1 year to implement. What the mayor was referring to was last week we had our production cut over essentially into processing in EnerGov, which is our codes and permitting software. And I'm going to hit a little bit tonight on some screenshots to show you the modern feel of the software. When we get into the online services, which we have that team still staying together and working towards online permitting, and we're hoping to roll that out in April, I want to come back to the commission, really highlight that for you and show you all the bells and whistles and get into it more then. So we are working on online services, which is online permitting. You can schedule inspections, you can pay bills online. They have an application, like a mobile app, where you could actually submit service requests. So we're still working on those pieces. Our human resources and payroll phase kicked off last month, so that was an incredible amount of work because we were taking EnerGov live and starting a new process. And then what will wrap it all up is essentially our work order system, and that's for fleet and facilities. So that kind of ties all the pieces together. So that will start after we finish the HR payroll phase, which is scheduled to go live next January, so January of 2022. I just wanted to spend a minute on this and talk about how much work it is to get these modules live. Each module takes about a year, and so this is a very high-level project plan for our HR payroll, but essentially all of those lines are times when the software company is on-site working with our team. So in addition to everybody's full-time regular job, I would say that when I went back and looked at the hours, just through configuration and testing, it's an additional, 400 hours of work for our staff. So they're all doing their regular jobs and focusing on the software. And it's just an incredible amount of work, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Tyler talks about all the time, the company, how they like working with the City of Paducah and how dedicated we are to using the software. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through some screenshots of what our new software looks like. So this is neat. This is a true kind of ERP. I think this is the best that shows the ERP software and how it works together. This is our hub. So this is the landing page that our staff sees when they log in. And all of those are tiles. So you can see it's a major upgrade from the green screen. And it's neat because Munis and EnerGov feed into this. So if you're working in both, like maybe fire prevention, engineering, or planning, you log in here and you can access EnerGov and Munis through this hub, and you can have your approvals. You can get notifications that you have a new plan to review. It all goes through this hub, so it's a really kind of neat piece that ties all the software together. This is just an example of Munis. This is a PIA purchase order screen. This is very internal, but you can see it's a lot more modern than what we have now. So this is kind of your first look at EnerGov codes and permitting. I realize it's very hard to see, but essentially what all of those green steps are is that's the workflow. So this is actually a zoning application process that our staff has built. And there's some neat features here. This is one that's in process for a fence permit. And it has actually different status indicators. So green is complete, blue or has blue, yellow, and red, and then it'll show you where you are in the whole process with a pie chart. So it's a really neat piece of software. And our team builds all of this. They basically give you a blank slate and you have to build all of it. So this is where we'll really look at our process, try and make the changes we can, and then we build it in the software. So I did want to talk about, this is essentially a mapping screen in EnerGov. EnerGov speaks directly with our GIS system so that we're not maintaining multiple sets of data. We're just able to maintain, the property owners and that information in GIS, and it has a live link that feeds into EnerGov so that our codes and permitting team can just access it through the software and not have to be maintaining data sets in Munis and GIS. So this is really a nice staff efficiency. And it also will work with our online permitting, and this is why we moved towards EnerGov primarily. So I wanted to make sure I put this on here. This is actually, it's very difficult to see, so I apologize for that. But this is a look at our electronic plan review. So this was another major goal of the software, was to implement electronic plans so that we're not passing paper plans back and forth between departments. So this is a cross-departmental permit. You can see that probably can't see, but there's Rick Murphy, Les Fugate, and Josh, and they all receive notification at the same time that there's a plan out there to be reviewed, and they can actually log in. It's a separate software system called Bluebeam, but you will be able to submit your plans electronically. We'll be able to review them electronically and give you back any changes or revisions. So it should hopefully expedite that process because we're not passing paper permits around the city. So this was a major goal that got us started, and EnerGov does it very well. I did want to take a moment to highlight credit cards. This was another major goal of our software that we are very close to achieving. So this is over-the-counter credit card payments. Finance went live on Monday with their system. And we've hit a technical snag on the fire prevention side, but we're working, ideally that would have been resolved before this meeting, but we're still working through it with our software vendor. And so now you can come into City Hall and pay your permits, or you can get your property taxes, any revenue that finance takes, you can pay with a credit card. So we have a 2.95% service fee. The city doesn't retain any of those fees. It's simply for the cost of taking the credit and the debit card that the companies charge. And we accept all types, and as soon as we get fire prevention up and running, we have a news release letting people know that we're accepting credit cards and, come on in and you can pay with it. We will still accept, cash and checks have no fee. It truly is a convenience fee for the cost of taking those credit cards. So what everyone probably cares about the most, we basically had to lay all that foundation, and our internal side has to be working well before we can roll out the online services. So we will have a citizen self-service portal for the revenue side, the finance side with business license and property taxes. What the team is currently working on right now is our online permitting and what's called Tyler 311. So this is an online service request and a cell phone app. And on the online permitting, I actually have a screenshot here, but we'll have a great self-service site where you can apply for a permit online, you can see the status, you can pay your invoices, you can submit your plan review, you can schedule inspections. So they have a very, very robust online permitting that we have configured. We just need to do a little bit of testing before we roll it out to the public. And we will have a lot of communications and celebrations around that, and I'd like to bring it back to this commission to demo the online permitting for you. But we're looking at having an open house because we have a great computer lab downstairs so that we can bring some of our developers or contractors in and show them the new features and get some feedback too. We're looking at making how-to videos and scripts on how to submit permits online because we really want people to use them. We'll be looking at marketing materials and branding it. I don't know if we want to keep it called self-service or something else, that kind of Paducah-eyes it. And I know that the city manager loves a good branding and a good party, so we'll work towards that. We're also looking at a kiosk that we could have downstairs for online permitting and payments that the customer experience department could help citizens with. So maybe they don't have to wait in line, or we can show them how to use it and they can make a payment online. So I did want to spend, I guess before I leave that, our EnerGov team is staying together to work on this until it's live and fully rolled out, and our Tyler team is as well. So this is a continued emphasis through this month. We're really close. Our target date right now that we're looking at is April to start rolling out some of these features. So we're very close. We just need to do some testing, and we're not disbanding our team until this is complete. Some upcoming challenges, as we are implementing HR payroll, and this is internal, we don't have an electronic timekeeping solution. Right now, the departments have different solutions they're using for their timekeeping. So we're exploring what options there are that work with the software we have. That's in the very early stages. One thing that we don't want to fall behind in is our upgrades. We want to make sure that we're staying on there as much as we can. Their most recent products because they roll out new functionality and fix bugs. So we want to make sure that we have an aggressive upgrade schedule, but it's a lot of work on staff to do that. So we try to balance those two. And then as we're finishing these final phases, we want to make sure that we're really utilizing the system as a true ERP system and taking advantage of everything that it has to offer. I wanted to spend, I'm almost done, I just have a couple more slides, but one thing that we have learned, this is kind of a lessons learned with the Tyler software. They have Munis and EnerGov that are their main pieces of software. But what we've learned is they have all of these ancillary products that work with it, and this is how we roll out a lot of those features. So the citizen self-service portals, Tyler 311, our mobile inspection applications, those are examples of citizen features that are all on their own upgrade schedule and configuration, and it has to all work together. Tyler Cashiering is our payment taking system, that's where someone actually, that's what we use to take payments. And Tyler Content Manager is where we store our documents. So these are all separate systems that have their own versions and upgrade schedules. And a couple years ago, we added our business systems analyst, and this is one of her main jobs with our software, is managing all of these integrations because all of these pieces have to work seamlessly in order to be able to roll anything out. We also have a number of side products that we're supporting. Bluebeam is electronic plan review software. We have the credit card software. EnerGov is now running off of GIS, and as we learned a couple of weeks ago, that if you break the maps, you can actually break functionality. So that's really important for us to keep that functionality working. And then New World is the public safety side. That's the CAD, the dispatching, and fire and police. And that will eventually, we're thinking, is going to tie in through HR payroll and electronic timekeeping. So this is kind of the big world of software that we're working towards now. I just want to talk a little bit about the Tyler contract. It is a 7-year contract that will be up at the end of fiscal year '23. Our annual software cost, it is hosted. Tyler hosted, we don't host it on site, is about $300,000 a year. And then we have one-time implementation cost of about $1 million, and that's them coming on site, helping us configure it, helping us test it. Includes services like conversion. So if we converted 10 years of property tax data, which is an incredible amount of work, and so the cost of that conversion is included in there. So that's a one-time cost that will not be ongoing once we're implemented. And we budget it out of the investment fund, so when the budget comes to you, you'll see that line item there for our ERP software. That's what I have. And this was really intended to talk about the history and just give you a little look into some of the project.
Questions? Anybody have any questions? I'm curious, did we choose not to purchase a timekeeping, electronic timekeeping module?
Yeah. At the time, I don't think Tyler had a good solution, and I don't believe it was part of our initial scope. Since we've executed our contract, they did acquire a timekeeping solution, and that is one that we're exploring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know what the cost on that's going to be?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Right now, we're trying to understand our requirements, because, we're complex with public safety and our union contracts, and that all goes into what we need out of an electronic timekeeping software. So we're working on that piece now.
But they're working with lots of other cities, right? I mean,
Correct.
so,
Yes. Yeah. I'm confident we'll find one that works for us.
so, conversion of this magnitude was once described to me as racing in the Indy 500 and trying to change a tire at the same time. So, if that gives you a little bit of a visual of what our people are going through.
Yes.
So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work, and but it's really important for us in the long run to get this done, and to get it done right. And I'm just we're all appreciative of the work everybody's put into this. So,
Thank you. That means a lot to the team. They've done a phenomenal job.
all right, thank you, Michelle. Amy, come up and get in the hot seat with me.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I am merely here to just really kind of open the discussion. I know Oak Grove has been a really hot topic for everyone here lately. I don't have a presentation. I just wanted to give you a little background to how we got where we are today. In the fall, we had some complaints about the cemetery. We had gone and done a clean sweep. That was really before me, and I kind of came in after the fact.
Explain what a
Thank you.
clean sweep
Yes.
means.
Thank you,
I will.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yes.
I was going to say the same thing.
We went through and we did a clean sweep of the cemetery, basically removing any items that were not per the guidelines. The guidelines were revised, I believe, in 17, and they weren't enforced. So they went through and they did a clean sweep. We had a bunch of new supervisors, and they were given that instruction and they did that. There was some conflict because apparently the families weren't all notified before we did that. So we, of course, made it right. We put everything back. We took a look at our guidelines to see if there were any more revisions that we could make. And then we published those at the beginning of January with any kind of revisions that we had. There really weren't that many. We have pretty good guidelines. It's just a matter of enforcing them. So there were a couple of areas that we did update. One of the items was that you're not allowed to have a shepherd hook out there. We did allow those. So there's a few things that we are allowing that other cemeteries don't, that weren't in our guidelines before, to try to accommodate the families as best as we can. Here's some pictures of existing sites. I took these today, actually. There are 32 families and grave sites involved in the cleaning of the items that aren't supposed to be there. We're talking about like statues, glass, wind chimes, things like that, things that can get easily broken by equipment when they come through. Some of the other items are like landscaping. Some families have planted trees, planted plants that stay. Not always a great thing, but for root systems, that's kind of a concern for us. So, you would think flowers isn't that big of a deal if you plant flowers, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about like trees, bushes, shrubs, that kind of thing. A lot of people have added landscape rock around their plots. It looks pretty. They've decorated their plots the way that they really want to memorialize their family members. But for us, the middle picture there on the bottom, that's a row of graves. So operationally speaking, we get on a mower and we ride through those rows. And when we have plots like that, we actually have to stop. In some places in the cemetery, we have to back the mower up like 80 feet, turn around and come in from the other side, because the graves are so close together that we can't just go in and out and around things. So it makes it difficult for the operations. On the right, these are things that are allowed. We have the shepherd hook with the hanging basket right there next to the grave, or right next to the headstone. We have that top one is marble vase that's actually secured to the foundation of the headstone, so it doesn't fall off. The wind can't knock it over. The top left, those are just statues that have been blown over by the wind. We don't always catch that, so sometimes that actually may be broken. I didn't lift it up to check today. But a lot of the things, when they fall over, wind, rain, that kind of thing, they get broken and then they get left. And so there's just pieces and things like that for us to have to come through and clean up. And we don't really want to move things. We really want the families to be able to do that. But there's some just operational issues that we have when they don't get picked up. So that's kind of where we are today. The deadline that we gave families to remove their items was March 15th, which is next Monday. We haven't touched anything, and once we get past that date, we'll go through and start kind of cleaning out stuff that's
Amy,
left.
kind of explain
Yes.
for me, these families, how did you notify them? Did you confirm that they were provided notice?
Yeah, we actually don't take all of the burials through our office. Sometimes we work with the funeral homes. In fact, most times we do. The families will go through the funeral homes. The funeral home will contact us by the plot, and then the funeral home sets everything up with the family. So there's a lot of cases where these 32 families, we don't even have information for all of them. So this round, we put ads in the paper. We sent out news releases. It was printed. They've aired it on, I think KFVS 12 picked it up in January. So we were trying to make sure that we let the media know this time to help us get the word out, since we can't contact every family. And we do have agreements moving forward with the funeral homes that we're getting that contact information. So we are able to do that now.
So let me do my little share of this. As a new mayor, I began getting got a couple of messages from families wanting me to get involved and try to understand this. And so I went out to the cemetery and spent a couple hours with Amy out there, looking at all the grave sites and trying to understand everything that was going on, because I know it's a very very sensitive thing for the families, and very emotional whenever you lose a loved one. But I did more homework. I came back and I contacted the Kentucky League of Cities, and they gave me a couple of cities in Kentucky that also manage cemeteries. So I called mayors and city clerks and people to try to understand exactly how everybody's dealing with this issue. And it's kind of it's a universal thing.
It really is.
And it's something that cities have to manage. You know, you've got the issue of, Oak Grove Cemetery it's a big plot of ground. It's a big plot of ground, and last summer, because of COVID and other things, we got really behind on mowing out in the cemetery, and we took a lot of arrows on it, and we probably deserve some of them.
Sure.
But this year we're on top of it, and we're going to keep up with the mowing. But in order to keep up with the mowing and keep the cemetery looking right, we got to be efficient, and we've got to be able to, get through and mow and try to take all things into consideration. One city I talked to, they really had issues until they finally, commission decided to pass an ordinance. And they passed an ordinance, and kind of laid the rules out, and described the whole situation. So, I wanted to get this discussion out in the open, so people could see it. I wanted the rest of the commission to see it. I want to make sure I want to give you all an opportunity to be exposed to it, to ask questions. We've got this March 15th deadline, which is Monday. And, nobody's moved a thing, right?
Correct.
So nothing's been moved. So we're faced with either, moving all of that. We have 32 grave sites, with items that are out of compliance, from our rules and regulations. So we're faced with, starting to move those things on Monday morning, or perhaps given a grace period. Now that we've had this discussion, make sure that we're all on the same page, kind of what we could go forward. We could pass an ordinance. I'd rather try to work through it, and get it done. I'm willing to meet with any of the families. I know there's a couple of people that have reached out to me directly. That's why I wanted to have this open discussion tonight. So I just want to make sure that if there's any input or thoughts from any of the other commissioners, I'd sure like to hear it.
Would that put you and your department behind a great deal if there was a grace period?
No.
Say for another week or so?
No, I actually drove through today and called my team, and it's time to start mowing. So we're just now getting to that. Another week or two would not hurt us any.
When someone buys that at the funeral home, are they given those guidelines? 'Cause, my parents took care of it, so they knew the guidelines, and that's what we've just always gone by, the guidelines set by the cemetery where they are.
They are supposed to. They are supposed to. And now we have them filling out a form for us so that we have contact information for the families too. So yes, they're supposed to, but we can't confirm that they are.
So guidelines then are on yours?
They're on the website.
On your website?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. And they have been actually, but they are now updated and current.
And one of the things,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I also discovered is that, both cities that I talked to, they have signs posted. I don't know what our signage is out there, but they have signs posted all over, just as reminders and re-reminders, if you
Yeah.
will.
We actually just had one installed at the entry this week.
Okay.
So today's Tuesday. So yesterday, it got installed yesterday.
Okay.
So yes, we're making those improvements because we haven't had them before.
So certainly part of this is on us, I
Yes.
think. Even though we had the rules and regulations, we really just didn't completely have our act together, and that's what we're trying to get done.
Never been to one of these meetings, am I allowed to speak for just a second?
You know,
If you want to fill out a public comment card, we'll take comments at the end of the meeting. It's, Michelle, could you get her one, please?
Well, I'm a parent of one of these grave sites.
Yeah, we can take comments at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, we don't
for
have
sure.
a free for, just
I
a
didn't
back
know.
and forth,
Yeah.
but we would welcome your comments.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
want to just start speaking, I just was, that's why I asked.
I would imagine that most folk don't even know the guidelines, they don't even pay attention to the guidelines. They drive. I drive through the cemetery all the time, obviously, and I don't see anything. I mean, I'm not looking for it, so, you know.
Right.
And I agree, Commissioner Henderson, and I think probably if they're being, and I'm not saying that they're not being given to them, but when you go in and you're starting to make those decisions, it's traumatic to start with. And if you're in an emotional situation, they could give you the guidelines, and that does not necessarily mean that you're even going to remember them 2 weeks from them or that you were given
That's
them.
right.
So it's very sensitive and very delicate.
Yes.
And, you know, posting and doing those kind of things will help, but
And it's our responsibility to make sure that we communicate with those families when they do come out there. And we haven't done that in the past. So that is something that we are working towards, making sure that we have that grace period and we make sure that we have those conversations with families.
And kudos to you, Amy, for, you know, you've owned this, you've taken responsibility for what we got to do going forward, and, you know, that's what we need to always do, and, you know, as a city moving forward, so thank you for that.
Sure.
So is there anything special that we need to do to give a grace period, or do you just not go out Monday and pick up things?
It's just
unwritten?
it's an administrative decision.
Okay.
Just whatever you guys prefer.
I think it would be a good idea to give a short grace period. I think we've got to get ready. Grass is growing. We've got to get going. But you know, give people an opportunity that to see this discussion tonight, and you know, we'll have an update. There'll be an update posted, you know, about the commission highlights tonight, and then we can move forward from there. So
So do we want to suggest that they give another week grace period?
I would suggest, I'm just going to say 2 weeks. That would be my suggestion, if everybody would be okay with that.
She's that's not gonna put her behind, that's
No,
fine.
we can do that. Yep,
So that really, April 1st is
Okay.
what we're talking about.
we can do that.
Okay.
Not a problem. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. From here, we move to comments from our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one, if I could find my note here. Per request of Commissioner Wilson, we do have Mary Hammond from the CVB coming to our next meeting. She will do a presentation, give us an update on where we stand with the relocated workers program that she's been advertising with the Lou Hammond Group. So she'll be here at our next meeting to give a presentation on that.
Great. Any comments from commissioners?
No.
Okay, I think we have a public, how do we go about this? Okay, thank you. Well, speaking of, there's Heather Cheek.
You come up to the podium, ma'am.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're actually our first public commenter,
I'll be nice.
and,
Since COVID.
you have 3 minutes. So we do have to regulate that by ordinance, so, but we welcome you to speak.
Thank you. First of all, whenever I went and bought my daughter's gravesite, I went to the Parks Department. Nothing was said about ordinances, what I could or couldn't do. The first thing I asked is the type of headstone I could put out, because they said there was the area at Oak Grove that you had to have flat stones or certain stones. But then I was explained to that the older part of Oak Grove Cemetery, that I could put down what I want within reason. And I said, okay, and I understood, you know, I couldn't go build a house or nothing out there, you know, like that. And before I did anything, my daughter was buried in 2016. Before I did anything out there, Luther was running the cemetery at the time. I spoke to him. I even talked to Mark Thompson. I called. I said, I want to lay down brick. They said, we don't see a problem with that, as long as it's maintained and, you know, it's taken care of and, you know, you don't have stuff out there, you know, all over the place. I was told that was okay. And then whenever something said about it not being mowed correctly, next thing I know, I go out there and my daughter's grave is bare and it looks like it did the day she was buried almost 5 years ago. That was like a total shock. I called the governor's office. They said that was illegal, what was done. That nothing should have been removed off that grave without us being notified. The funeral homes do not feel like they're responsible. I talked to Lindsay's. Now I'm gonna have to have my daughter's headstone redone completely, or I can't put flowers out there, because I don't have a concrete vase. I didn't have that done, because that's extra money. And when you're already paying $5,000 to $10,000 for a funeral, and $1,500 or more for a headstone, you try to budget where you can. And that's what I had to do. And at the time, you do what you can, because you want, I mean, yes, as far as leaving stuff laying out everywhere, I don't think I should be able to do that. But this has been laying there for 5 years, almost 5 years, and now I'm being told to remove everything. If I had been told in the very beginning that I couldn't do this, I would not have buried her at Oak Grove. But I can tell you, the day I buried her, they had to remove somebody from one spot because they had buried them in the wrong spot. There's headstones up against each other where you can't see the backside of another headstone that prevents them from mowing. There's not even ground out there. The ground's eroded. So for them to say they can go a straight line and mow right between all them headstones, no. Oak Grove is not lined up in a perfect line like you see some of the other cemeteries. It's all over the place. And there's headstones literally laying over and back to back laying, resting up against each other. There's broken concrete flower pots. Take care of that stuff before you worry about clearing my daughter's grave.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. Thank you for listening.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, from here, we are, I need a motion to go into, right, into executive session.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: issues which might lead to the appointment, dismissal, or disciplining of an employee as permitted by KRS 61.8101F.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Guess,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye.
Do you need me to sign this, Lindsay?